How's everyone doing today? It's your boy JJ Domination. I know it's been a long ass time since I've uploaded on this channel. Listen, I've had my own ideas. I've had shit that I've been wanting to do on YouTube for a while, but it's just the hard part is hitting that record button, because it's like I don't want to do it today, but I'm gonna do it today. So we're gonna be ranking all of the divisions in the NFL, all 8 of them at least, from weakest to strongest, and this is all, like, in my opinion. If you want me to go in depth with a particular team, let me know, but this is going to be a very vague episode. I'm going to try not to spend forever on it, so like I said, if you want me to go in depth with a team, let me know in the comment section, and I'll do a breakdown of that team. I mean, there are other YouTubers that do the same stuff, trust me, that's where I get the inspiration from. So let me know in the comment section. And when I scroll through these teams, these are not the teams that I'm predicting to win the division. These are teams that won the division last year. So keep that in mind when you see me scrolling through the teams to represent the division. Let's just go ahead and get on with it, though. Number 8, the weakest division, in my opinion, is the AFC East. I mean, it's basically a one-team race with the Patriots dominating. Ever since 2000, the Patriots have only lost the division twice, so they have been a great model of consistency. You do have the Bills and the Jets, who are typically competing for second and third most of the time. Not necessarily most of the time. You throw the Dolphins in there as well. They're all kind of competing to see who finishes out closest to the Patriots. All 3 teams are in an interesting situation. Words are hard today. All 3 teams are in an interesting situation in terms of, like, the Buffalo Bills, New York Jets, Miami Dolphins. The Bills and the Jets are trying to be competitive if you've been keeping up with their offseason. The Dolphins, they're probably a few years away, but the Patriots is definitely their division to lose, and I don't see them losing it anytime soon. Number 7, this is where it gets a little tricky. I am going to go with the NFC East, but from, like, number 7 to, like, number 5, maybe, you can make the argument and switch it up however you want. Same thing with team numbers 4, 3, and possibly 2. This is where it gets tricky. But the NFC East, for me, it's a 2-team race between Dallas and Philadelphia. They've been the teams that's really, that's been good last season. Of course, Philadelphia made the playoffs as a wild card. Dallas won the division by beating Philadelphia twice to secure it. And then you have the Washington Redskins, who have kind of been mediocre over the last several seasons. And this season, I kind of expect the same, but you never know. Maybe they could, find lightning in a bottle, and they could flip that switch and be good. You never know. And then the Giants, I expect them to be one of the worst teams in football. But to me, it's a 2-team race between Dallas and Philadelphia. Should be an intriguing battle down the stretch this season. Number 6 for me, this is going to trigger a lot of people, the NFC South. In my opinion, similar to the NFC East, it is a 2-team race between the New Orleans Saints and the Atlanta Falcons. Carolina, I think, has a chance to make things interesting, but they're transitioning into a new defense this season, and we all know, if you've been keeping up with the trend recently, teams that transition to different defenses, they typically don't have the greatest of years. We saw Green Bay when they brought in Mike Pettin. They were not that good. Let's see, last year, I'm trying to think of some better examples. The Lions, they transitioned into a different defense. They weren't really that good. I mean, there's better examples out there, but those are 2 that kind of come to my mind immediately. I think it's going to be between the New Orleans Saints and the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons were injured last year. A lot of major injuries on defense and a few on offense. I think this year, barring injury, they're going to win like 10 or 11 games, maybe even more. Who knows? But same deal with Tampa Bay. They're also in a transitional year. New coach, new defensive coordinator, new defense completely. Jameis Winston basically in the last year of his contract. So a lot of intrigue in this division, but number 6 for me from a competitive standpoint. Number 5, I am going to go with... I'm going to go with these guys. The AFC West, I did have it on the Chargers, but I forgot they didn't win the division last year. It was actually Kansas City. But To me, it's a two-team race. There is a little bit of potential, like a 1% chance that it could be a three-team race, depending on how Denver or Oakland looks. I mean, call me crazy, but you never really know in this league. I didn't expect the Bears to go 12-4 last year and basically be a missed field goal away from possibly beating the Rams a second time and going to the NFC Championship. So anything can happen. You can't rule anything out in today's NFL. But to me, it's a two-team race with the potential for it to be a three-team race. Kansas City, they were in the AFC Championship last year. They made some upgrades on the defense, but they also did lose some key players. It's kind of risk-reward type of situation. And then, of course, the whole Tyreek Hill situation, which I'm not going to get into. The Chargers, one of the most complete rosters on paper. They're a pretty deep team as well in certain areas, especially in the secondary. And then, of course, Denver and Oakland. I mean, you never know with those teams. They have their strengths and weaknesses. Denver, of course, they got Vic Fangio as their new head coach. So it could be a transitional year for them. But I know Vic Fangio runs a 3-4, and so did Denver prior to him coming. So I don't think it'll be that big of a deal. Number 4, we are going to go with the AFC North. It has the potential to be a three-team race, but I think to be on the safe side and unpopular side of things, I guess, I'm going to say it's a two-team race between Baltimore and Pittsburgh. Until Cleveland can show me that they can win games and be more than just a talented roster, I will pick them. I've been rooting for Cleveland to be good. Last year they showed me a lot by going 7-8-1, but this season they've added a lot more talent. They have the 6th best odds of making the Super Bowl. They're the 2nd most popular bet that's being placed right now for the Super Bowl winner. And for me, it's like, well, you haven't been a playoff team since 2002. You haven't been 500 in several years, and you just want me to pick you to go to the Super Bowl? I don't think that's how this works. But Baltimore, of course, they won this division last year. They did have some key losses. They also had some key upgrades made via the draft and via free agency by bringing in Earl Thomas, Mark Ingram. They also drafted guys like Justice Hill, Jalen Ferguson. They had a pretty good draft as well. One of my favorites. And I'm going to say that for several teams, but hell, even some teams that I didn't even talk about that much, they had some good drafts as well. Pittsburgh, of course, no Antonio Brown, no Le'Veon Bell. We're going to see what they look like without those two officially now for the first time. Let's see, we're going to have to keep a good eye out for James Conner and Juju Smith-Schuster because they are apparently the replacements. They're both very good players. I just want to see what they do this year. Cleveland, we already touched on them. They're talented, but I got to see if they can win games. And Cincinnati, new coach, a transitional year for the offense. They have a good bit of talent on that team. They got some players I really like, guys that I called, that would end up being good. And, it's another wait-and-see approach. I think they're a few years away. Number 3 for me, the NFC West. And you're probably like, what? The Cardinals, they're in the NFC West and they had the number 1 pick. The 49ers, they were in the NFC West and they had the number 2 pick. Well, like I said, you can make the argument for them to be lower on this list, but to me, I think it's a 2 to 3 team race. At least that's my perception of it. The Rams, they're the top dogs. I am concerned for Jared Goff and Todd Gurley. Todd Gurley, of course, there are reports coming out that he's probably not going to get the same workload. He's not going to be that bell cow running back, which for fantasy owners out there, of course, you still want him in the first round because he's Todd freaking Gurley. But I wouldn't be drafting him too high, in fantasy. Like, if you're in a 12-man league, he'd probably be like the 10th pick for me. That's just me personally, because you can't rely on him to be that dude. And same thing in real life, for the Rams. You can't rely on him to be that dude. That's why they went out and got a running back in the 3rd round, Darrell Henderson. And Goff, losing a couple of veteran offensive linemen. He's the 28th ranked quarterback last season against the blitz and when being pressured, which basically, translation, he sucks when he's being pressured. He's not that elite quarterback under pressure like Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes. And I'm not calling Patrick Mahomes elite, but he was elite in that particular category when it came to throwing under pressure. So, The Rams, they're the top dogs. The Seattle Seahawks, it's very interesting because they are kind of transitioning into a new era of Seattle Seahawk football, but at the same time, they were in the playoffs last year, a huge overachiever, and they could go on a little run again because Russell Wilson knows how to win football games, and Pete Carroll knows how to win football games, especially in December. You know, outside of Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady and your usual suspects, Russell Wilson is that dude in December. The 49ers, they've been hit with the injury bug last season and a little bit this season. But, you know, there's a lot of unknowns on this team. You know, Jimmy Garoppolo has yet to play a dozen NFL games, and we're going to ask him to basically play a full season. So we're going to see what Jimmy Garoppolo looks like under a 16-game microscope, assuming nothing happens to him. And there's a lot of talent on this offensive side of the ball, but who's going to break through? How are we going to manage carries and receptions and touches and scrimmage yards? How are we going to manage that with all the guys that you have to feed, especially in that running back room, because it's a pretty deep running back room, at least in my opinion. They're about 4 deep. You know, with Jerick McKinnon, Tevin Coleman, Matt Breida, Raheem Morstead, and then Jeff Wilson Jr. showed flashes last season as well. So they're a very intriguing team. And then finally, the Arizona Cardinals. They had the #1 pick. They took Kyler Murray. Don't be mad at Kyler Murray. Be mad at the organization for giving up on Josh Rosen as early as they did. I wish them both the best of luck. I'm not picking sides. You're not going to force me to pick sides. I'm wishing both of them the best of luck. Number two. I know I spent a lot of time on that division. That's weird. We're going to go with the NFC North. In my opinion, this is a little bit of a hot take. I hate to use that term, but I think for lack of a better term, you know, I'm going to go ahead and use it. I think all 4 of these teams have the potential to make the playoffs. And I know that sounds crazy because Detroit hasn't really done shit in the playoffs in a long time. Green Bay, they didn't make the playoffs the last 2 seasons. Minnesota, they're hot and cold, it seems like, and the Bears are coming off one of their best seasons in a long time. I'm going to talk about the Bears in a moment, but the Packers have drastically improved their roster via free agency in the draft by getting Adrian Amos, that being Zadarius Smith and Preston Smith in free agency, and also adding Billy Turner, who's a versatile offensive lineman. He's played a lot of snaps at right guard and right tackle, so he's very experienced in that regard. And, of course, a pretty solid draft. Same thing with Detroit. It was a hit-or-miss draft for them. You know, they had some players that I really liked, but then they just made some head-scratching picks as well. And their free agency process I thought was pretty good. So those are the 2 teams that really improved. And then you also have Minnesota, who they're going to be healthier. I thought they had a pretty savvy draft process. And in free agency, I mean, really all they did was bring back Anthony Barr. So, I mean, it was pretty solid. The Bears, I'm a little concerned because, yeah, they were 12-4, and you can make the case that, you know, there's not much they need to improve upon, but everyone else in that division has drastically improved in some way or fashion, and the Bears have basically stayed the same. The only thing that changed was, you know, the defensive coordinator left, put in Clinton Dix in the place of Adrian Amos, and traded Jordan Howard to basically get David Montgomery, who I think he's going to be pretty good, you know, for the Bears. So you draft a running back to replace one that you traded. You lose your defensive coordinator and your slot corner and your strong safety, and meanwhile everyone else around you is getting better. I'm not saying Chicago's going to be a bad team, but I would definitely keep an eye out for Chicago. It would not surprise me if they won like 9 games this year. I'm just saying, and I'm not trying to come off as a hater. They did some great shit last year, but I'm just throwing that out there. And then number 1, the AFC South. Believably, I think at least 3 or 4 of these teams, you know, can win this division, but I think all 4 have a good chance to make the playoffs. Same thing with the NFC North. The Jaguars, they just got Nick Foles. Listen, we've seen what Nick Foles looks like out of Philadelphia, and it's not good. Okay, I'm just going to be honest. Nick Foles outside of Philadelphia does not look good. Outside of that Philadelphia Eagles uniform, he doesn't look good. But John DeFilippo, a familiar face, you know, and the offense is basically going to be built around what he specializes in, which is the quick passing game, the RPOs, and all that stuff. So maybe it'll be a little bit better sailing for him, but that's another wait-and-see approach. The Houston Texans, they won this division last year. I'm not too sure if they're going to win it this season, man. The competition has definitely stiffened up. I do think they'll be a pretty good team. I like what they've done, in free agency. I thought their draft process was okay. It wasn't terrible, but, it's just okay, in my opinion. A couple of reaches here and there. The Tennessee Titans, they're my sleeper team, personally. I'm just going to throw that narrative out there. They're my sleeper team. It just depends on Marcus Mariota, to be honest. Derrick Henry, I know everyone's, blowing up Derrick Henry, but all those rushing yards really came from like the last 5 or 6 weeks of the season. Can he give you that for a full 16? That has yet to be determined. I like what they did throughout the draft and free agency. I thought they had one of the best off seasons, in my opinion, in terms of getting better and strengthening up, some weaknesses like the wide receiving core, kind of retooling that offensive line a bit and adding more depth to your defense. I thought that was a very key process for Tennessee. And then finally, the Indianapolis Colts, a huge overachieving team last year. They were supposed to be in a rebuilding year, kind of reintroducing Andrew Luck, and they found lightning in a bottle, and they went 9-1 in the last 10 regular season games. And on top of that, they got a victory over the division-winning Houston Texans. And, granted, they had a shitty performance against Kansas City, but it was just good to see Andrew Luck in the postseason again. Who knows, man? He might be the MVP of the league next year. Arguably top 3 last season with Patrick Mahomes and Drew Brees. He could be a front runner for it this year. Don't sleep on Andrew Luck for the MVP award. Just going to throw that narrative out there. But let me know what you guys think down below in the comment section. Like I said, I didn't want to go in depth with every team. I didn't really want to go that much in depth because this would be like a 40-50 minute video. But if you want me to do a breakdown of a particular team, let me know down in the comment section below. Like I said, there are other YouTubers that do these kind of things. I'm not original, just throwing it out there. But let me know down in the comment section below, and peace out.